What if the life you are living right now is not really yours? What if every choice, every dream, every version of you has been shaped, not by your soul, but by other people's expectations? You follow the rules. You chase the milestones. You do everything you were told would make you happy. And yet, somewhere deep inside, something doesn't feel alive. We spend years trying to fit in, to be good, to be enough. But one day, something inside begins to fracture. You wake up, and a quiet, terrifying question rises. If this is not me, then who am I? Carl Jung believed that this moment, the collapse of everything false, is where real life begins. Because life doesn't truly begin when you are born. It begins the moment you find yourself. But what does it mean to find yourself? It's not about creating a new identity or chasing the next version of self-improvement. It's about uncovering the person you were before the world told you who to be. Most of us never get that far. We grow up learning to survive, not to become. As children, we sense instinctively who we are, wild, curious, honest, but little by little the world teaches us to hide it. Be quiet, be good, don't feel too much. We adapt because belonging feels safer than truth. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, we begin to construct a mask, a version of ourselves that can be accepted, rewarded, loved. It smiles on command. It agrees to keep the peace. It works hard to earn approval. It fits in perfectly, but it never quite feels like home. Jung discovered that this mask has a name. He called it the persona, the social self we present to the world. At first, the persona protects us. It helps us navigate relationships, find stability, make a place for ourselves in society. But over time, we start to confuse the mask with our real face. We become performers in our own lives, competent, admired, yet inwardly hollow. You can feel it in those quiet moments when the noise fades, when success feels strangely empty, when you wonder why the things you worked so hard for don't make you happy, when you realize that everyone seems to know who you are, except you. And that is the quiet tragedy Jung saw everywhere. Most people never live their own lives. They live the lives expected of them. They mistake existence for living. But the fact that you are here, listening, means that voice inside you hasn't died yet. It's still whispering beneath the noise, calling you back to yourself. So ask yourself, honestly, whose life have I been living? What would it mean to meet the person I was before the world told me who to be? Because when you begin to answer that question, something extraordinary happens. The mask starts to loosen. The air feels different, lighter, clearer. You sense there is more to you than you have ever allowed yourself to be. This is where Jung said true life begins, not in the safety of the mask, but in the risk of authenticity. And if you follow that feeling, it will lead you to the next threshold, to the hidden side of yourself you have spent years avoiding, the side that both frightens and frees you, the part Jung called the shadow. The mask you wear is not your enemy. In fact, it once saved you. As a child, you learned quickly what was acceptable and what was not. You were told to be polite, to sit still, to stop being so sensitive, or grow up. Each moment carved into your memory, teaching you that certain emotions, certain truths, were dangerous to reveal. And so you adjusted. You learned how to smile even when your heart was heavy. You hid your tears because they made others uncomfortable. You learned to shrink yourself just enough to fit into the spaces the world allowed. That is how the persona is born. Jung identified it as the mask you create to meet the expectations of family, school, culture, and society. Without it, you would have been too exposed to survive. The persona is what allowed you to belong. But here is where the danger lies. Over time, the mask hardens. What began as a survival tool becomes a full-time identity. And the longer you wear it, the more you forget that it was never truly you. You can see this everywhere. The woman admired for her strength, yet secretly exhausted because no one knows how much she's holding inside. The man praised for his career, yet empty because his work has no soul. The parent who sacrifices everything for the family, yet feels invisible the moment they are alone. These are not failures. They are signs of a life lived too long behind the mask. Because every time you choose approval over authenticity, the mask tightens. Every time you silence your truth to keep the peace, you lose another fragment of yourself. Every time you hide your tears, your joy, your anger, your passion, you make the mask more real, while your true self fades deeper into the shadows. And here's the paradox. Society rewards the mask. The persona is praised. You are told you are strong, kind, successful. But deep inside, you may feel lifeless, like a character performing on a stage where the script was written by someone else. Have you ever laughed along even though the joke cut you inside? Have you ever nodded in agreement while your entire being screamed, no? Have you ever carried the weight of a role, mother, worker, partner, friend, while silently wondering if anyone could see the real you anymore? If you have, you know the pain of the persona. Jung warned us of this very danger. When you mistake the mask for your true face, you become a stranger to yourself, and slowly, piece by piece, your soul begins to suffocate. But what about the parts of you that never made it into the mask? The anger you swallowed, the grief you buried, the desires you silenced. What happened to them? They did not disappear. They are still with you, waiting. They live in the places you avoid, in the feelings you dismiss, in the people who trigger you most. Jung gave these hidden parts a name. He called them the shadow. And once you begin to understand it, you will see that the shadow is not here to destroy you. It is here to set you free. The shadow is not an abstract idea. It is not a poetic metaphor for darkness. It is real, and it lives inside you. The shadow is made up of everything you decided, consciously or unconsciously, was too dangerous to show. It is your rage that was punished, your grief that was dismissed, your desires that were shamed, your sensitivity that was mocked. You buried these pieces not because you wanted to, but because you had to. It was the price of belonging. But here's the truth no one tells you. What you bury does not die. What you suppress does not vanish. It simply moves underground, into the unconscious. And from there, it begins to rule your life. Jung realized this with a clarity that still unsettles us today. He wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Think about that. Every fear you avoid, every destructive pattern you repeat, every relationship that collapses the same way as the last, every time you sabotage yourself just when things were beginning to work. This is not random. This is the shadow at work. It leaks out in moments you don't expect, in the sharp tone you use with someone you love, even when you swore you wouldn't, in the jealousy that flares when a friend succeeds, in the judgment you cast on others that secretly mirrors the judgment you have been carrying toward yourself. Have you ever met someone who irritated you instantly before you even knew them? Something about them triggered you in a way you couldn't explain. Jung discovered that this often happens because they reflect back a piece of your own shadow, the very quality you have disowned in yourself. This is projection. When the parts of yourself you refuse to face are seen everywhere but within. And here is where it becomes even more profound. The shadow is not only your darkness, it is also your hidden light. The creativity you shut down because you were told it wasn't practical. The tenderness you suppressed because vulnerability felt unsafe. The ambition you buried because you feared it would make others reject you. These too belong to your shadow. They are not gone. They are waiting. Jung realized that the shadow is not your enemy. It is your doorway. It is the dragon guarding the treasure. And if you are willing to face it, to enter the forest of your own soul, you will find the very pieces of yourself you thought you had lost. But here's the problem. Most people never walk into that forest. Why? Because it feels terrifying. To face your shadow is to sit in silence and finally hear the voices you have drowned out. It is to look into the mirror and see not just the person you show the world, but the one you have been hiding all along. And yes, it hurts. At first, it feels like a storm breaking open every wound you have avoided. But within that storm is the seed of freedom. Because once you face what you have denied, it loses its power to control you. Have you ever imagined what it would feel like to speak without fear of judgment? To act without the weight of past shame? To finally say what you mean? To want what you want? To live without apology? That is the gift the shadow holds. It is not here to destroy you. It is here to restore you. But the shadow is only one part of the story, because once you begin to face it, you discover you are not dealing with random fragments of personality. You are touching forces far older, far deeper. Jung called them archetypes, and they are the next step in this journey. When you step beyond the mask, and when you begin to face the shadow, something remarkable happens. You realize you are not alone inside yourself. It can feel almost unsettling at first, like you have opened a hidden room in your own house and found it filled with strangers. Yet these strangers are not intruders. They are parts of you, ancient patterns, forces that have been shaping your life quietly from the very beginning. Carl Jung called them archetypes. Archetypes are not just ideas in psychology textbooks. They are living currents within the human psyche. They appear in myths, fairy tales, dreams, religions, and art across every culture. And they also appear in you, in the choices you make, the struggles you repeat, the yearnings you can't explain. Consider the hero. She is the part of you that longs for purpose, that pushes forward against odds, that whispers, "There must be more than this." The hero pulls you into growth, demanding courage, resilience, and sacrifice. But the hero does not walk alone. She is always shadowed by fear, self-doubt, and the temptation to turn back. Or think of the lover, the part of you that yearns for intimacy, beauty, passion. When this archetype is alive in you, relationships feel electric, art flows from your fingertips, and life itself glows with meaning. But when denied or distorted, the lover can show up as emptiness, obsession, or endless longing for what you can't reach. And then there is the wise mentor, the part of you that sees from a higher vantage point, that knows when to pause, when to wait, when to listen to the deeper rhythm. This archetype whispers in dreams, in moments of silence, in sudden insights that seem to come from beyond you. These archetypes are not outside forces. They are you. They are the deep structures of your psyche. Jung documented them as universal patterns stored in what he called the collective unconscious. He believed we inherit not only eye color and bone structure, but also a psychic inheritance, a living memory of humanity's oldest experiences, passed down from generation to generation. This is why the same characters appear in myths from Greece to India to Africa to the Americas. The hero, the mother, the trickster, the shadow, the child. They are etched into the very fabric of our minds. And here is the critical point. Whether or not you recognize them, they are at work in you. Have you ever noticed that you keep playing out the same story in different relationships? That you fall into the same conflicts, the same heartbreaks, the same mistakes, no matter how much you vow to change? That is not just bad luck. It is the archetypes at play. When you are unconscious of them, they use you like a puppet. But when you recognize them, when you name them, you begin to step into choice. Imagine realizing that your fear of stepping into leadership isn't just about your job. It is your inner hero standing at the threshold, demanding that you face your shadow before you can rise. Or that your endless longing for approval isn't weakness, it is the distorted lover in you, searching for the beauty and intimacy you have denied yourself. When you see life through this lens, patterns stop being random. They become a myth you are living. And the question becomes, are you willing to become the conscious author of that myth? But Jung did not stop with the hero, the lover, or the mentor. He identified a pair of archetypes so central that they shape not only our behavior, but the very balance of our souls. They are the inner feminine and inner masculine, the anima and the animus. And if you have ever felt torn between softness and strength, between intuition and logic, between surrender and control, you have already met them. You are both river and stone, fluid and steady, softness and power. But if you have ever felt guilty for being too strong or ashamed for being too tender, you know how difficult it is to hold these two truths at once. Carl Jung believed that within every man lives an inner feminine energy he called the anima, and within every woman lives an inner masculine energy he called the animus. These are not about gender in the physical sense. They are about the balance of energies that make us whole. The anima is intuition, creativity, emotion, sensitivity, and connection with the unseen. She is the river that flows beneath logic, the whisper of dreams, the gut feeling, the creative spark that can't be explained. The animus is structure, clarity, assertiveness, discipline, and will. He is the stone, the firm ground that allows ideas to take shape, the courage to speak boundaries, the resolve to walk a path even when it is difficult. When these energies are balanced within you, there is harmony. You feel both open and grounded, receptive and strong, tender yet unafraid to stand tall. But what happens when one is denied? When a woman rejects her animus, she may struggle to assert herself. She says yes when she wants to say no. She doubts her own authority. She hesitates to speak her truth, fearing it will upset others. She becomes apologetic for existing, even when her soul longs to stand firm. When a man rejects his anima, he may fear his own emotions. Vulnerability feels dangerous, so he suppresses it. Sensitivity feels weak, so he hides it. He builds walls of control, only to find himself lonely within them. And here is the painful part. Society often encourages this imbalance. Women are praised for being selfless, accommodating, endlessly giving, yet criticized when they assert themselves. Men are admired for being strong, logical, unfeeling, but shamed if they shed a tear. So we grow lopsided. Half of who we are is starved, while the other half grows distorted from carrying the weight alone. But Jung observed something profound. These rejected energies never disappear. They wait in the unconscious, creating conflict, until we bring them into balance. Think of the woman who has lived her whole life as the caretaker, giving to everyone but herself. She may feel resentful, exhausted, or invisible. What is missing is not more giving. It is the animus, the masculine strength within her that says, "Your needs matter too." Or consider the man who has built his life on success and control, but feels hollow inside. What he has denied is not strength, but softness. The anima within him who whispers, "You are allowed to feel. You are allowed to need. You are allowed to love." When we embrace both energies, we come home to ourselves. For women, this may mean reclaiming authority without apology, while also honoring tenderness without shame. For men, it may mean reclaiming vulnerability without fear, while honoring strength without rigidity. Balance is not about being half of one and half of the other. It is about wholeness, allowing all of who you are to exist without rejection. And when this balance returns, something extraordinary happens. Your relationships change. Instead of looking to others to complete you, you begin to feel complete within yourself. Love becomes freer, less desperate, more real. Jung understood this balance as essential to individuation, the process of becoming whole. Without it, we remain fractured. With it, we step into harmony. But even this is not the final step, because beyond the persona, beyond the shadow, beyond the archetypes, beyond even the dance of feminine and masculine, lies the deepest truth of all, the greatest illusion, the one most of us spend our entire lives believing. It is the illusion of self. All your life, you have been told who you are. Your name, your roles, your job, your culture, your history, these pieces stitched together into a story you call me. And yet, Jung discovered something radical. What you call yourself is not the whole truth. We live as if our identity were a fixed thing. A single face, a single self, moving steadily through time. But when you look closer, this certainty begins to crack. Have you ever noticed how different you feel in different contexts? At work, you may be disciplined, controlled, and efficient. At home, you may soften, let go, even collapse. With one friend, you are playful. With another, deeply serious. Alone, you are someone else entirely. So which one is the real you? Most people avoid this question because it feels destabilizing. We want to believe we are solid, consistent, permanent. But Jung observed that the self we cling to so tightly is not fixed. It is fluid, shifting, evolving. He called the small surface identity the ego. The ego builds borders. This is who I am. This is who I am not. It insists on definition because it is terrified of uncertainty. But beyond the ego lies something greater, the self. Not the mask, not the roles, not the fragments of identity you defend and protect. The self is the totality of who you are. It is the wholeness that includes everything, the parts you love, the parts you reject, the dreams you remember, the wounds you bury, even the possibilities you have not yet lived. And here is the revelation. The self is not only personal, it is connected to something vast. Jung called this the collective unconscious, the deep psychic inheritance of humanity itself. Think about it. When you dream, you sometimes see images you have never known. You walk landscapes that feel ancient, meet figures that seem timeless. Where do these come from? They are not random. They are whispers from the deeper self, the part of you that is connected to all of life. This is why spiritual teachers and philosophers across centuries echo the same truth. You are not just an isolated being moving through time. You are part of an unfolding field of consciousness. But here is where it gets uncomfortable. If this is true, then the self you have been clinging to, the I that is built from labels and roles, is not the full story. It is only a fragment. And that means everything you have believed about who you are, your limitations, your fears, even your sense of identity, is not the final truth. This realization can feel terrifying, because if you are not only this you, then who are you? But it is also liberating, because it means you are not bound by the past. You are not trapped by the roles others have written for you. You are more than the sum of your fears, more than the voice of your ego. Imagine it like this. The ego is a single thread. Strong, yes. Important, yes. But step back, and you see that thread woven into a vast tapestry, one so much larger than you imagined. That tapestry is yourself, and the moment you stop clinging to the single thread, you begin to see the whole design. This is why Jung insisted that individuation, the process of becoming whole, is not about constructing a brand new self, but about uncovering what has always been there. It is about remembering. Have you ever felt that strange pull, a quiet longing for something more? That sensation that life is meant to be deeper, fuller, more alive than the surface you have been living. That is the self calling you. It does not shout. It whispers. In dreams, in synchronicities, in the patterns that keep repeating until you pay attention. The self is not trying to erase you. It is trying to awaken you. And here lies the final choice. Will you continue to cling to the fragment, the mask, the role, the small identity? Or will you dare to let go and remember the wholeness you have always carried inside you? Because if you do, something extraordinary happens. The life you thought you had lost is revealed to have been here all along, waiting for you to claim it. And this is where the journey leads, to the final step. The journey we have taken together is not about becoming someone new. It is about remembering who you have always been. From the beginning, you were whole, but life, family, culture, society taught you to hide pieces of yourself. You built a persona, a mask to survive. You pushed the unwanted pieces into the shadow. You lived out the battles of archetypes, repeating old patterns without even knowing it. You clung to the fragile idea of me, believing it was the whole story. But here's the truth. You were never broken. You were never missing. You were only forgetting. The mask you wear is not the end of you. The shadow you fear is not your enemy. The archetypes within you are not strangers. And even the ego you cling to is not wrong. It is simply too small to contain the fullness of who you are. Jung reminded us, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakens. Awakening is not easy. It asks you to look honestly at the roles you have played, the wounds you have carried, the truths you have buried. It demands that you face not only your fear, but also your potential. Because yes, your light can be just as frightening as your darkness. But this is the privilege of a lifetime, to remember yourself, to gather every piece you once left behind and welcome it home. Imagine for a moment what it would feel like to live without apology, to speak in your true voice, no longer filtered for approval, to love without clinging, because you no longer fear abandonment, to create, not because the world demands it, but because your soul is overflowing, to walk through each day knowing that you are not a mask, not a role, not a fragment, but a living whole. That is what individuation is, the great remembering. And it does not end. This is not a destination you arrive at once and for all. It is a rhythm, an unfolding, a lifelong return. Each season of your life invites you to shed another mask, to embrace another shadow, to integrate another archetype, to expand into a deeper self. This is why Jung called individuation a process, a sacred movement of becoming more fully alive, over and over again. And here is the most beautiful truth of all. You are not alone in this. Right now, across the world, people are waking up to the same realization. They are growing tired of performing, tired of shrinking, tired of pretending. They too are remembering. And when we remember together, something extraordinary happens. Healing that once felt personal becomes collective. The journey of one soul ripples out, touching many. This is not just your story. It is part of a larger awakening. If you have felt something stir in you as you listened, it is not a coincidence. It is resonance. It is the part of you that knows this message was not meant only for your ears, but for your heart. So I invite you, stay with this journey, not as a follower, not as a student, but as a companion. Together, we are walking back to wholeness. Together, we are remembering. Because life does not truly begin when you are born. Life begins when you finally remember who you are.